I have the pleasure of being joined today by Charlie Griffiths of HAKEN. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Good. It's my pleasure to be here as well. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I was able to catch you guys back in May. You came through Seattle with Symphony X, and that was awesome. I think Symphony X and HAKEN are probably both like top 10 bands for me. So that was like a perfect
Awesome.
feel. I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah, it was such a fun tour. That the whole tour was just awesome.
I mean, both the bands.
Getting to hang out with Michael Romeo every day and just sort of pretend you're not a little fanboy. You just be like, oh, hi, Mike. How's it going?
How's it going? How you doing? did he show you some stuff?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I actually, one of my friends who was at the show is good friends with Russell Allen. So I ended up on the Symphony X tour bus till like 3 a.m. after the show, which was great. So I got to hang out with Michael Roma too. It was awesome. But you got to do it for like, how long? For a month or two you guys were on?
Yeah. I hear their tour bus was pretty...
It was really nice, yeah.
Pretty gamery. I hear that. That's what...
I think there was like... I did see a couple of gaming systems in there.
I think he was telling me that he was like up until 5 a.m. most nights playing Resident Evil Village. And that
was their tour bus larger than yours, or did you have the same?
I think they're basically the same. Like was it like whatever that brand of tour bus is in the States is kind of the same. But their one had the kind of side bit that kind of extended outwards sideways. So you got in the lounge, you had a lot more room.
Do you guys get tour buses every time now when you're touring around?
Yeah.
For the most part?
Yeah. It's the only way to do it, really.
Yeah. Back in the day when you were just starting out, was it more of like a drive your car around situation?
Yeah, definitely. Like in Europe, it started off like that. Just getting a splitter van and driving ourselves around.
Yeah.
And then, you might be able to afford to pay someone to drive you, on the next tour along, and then you just kind of
slowly work your way up. Yeah.
Yeah. And we did in the States, we kind of came over, we did the bandwagon, a couple of tours. Those are really good value for money, but they're like really bumpy.
Yeah.
So we just found it impossible to sleep in them, and it was just, So we go for the sort of normal size one, and it's the best. Yeah, I love it.
Does it
all your stuff's there in one place? It's just awesome.
Keep it all together. Yeah. Is it nice to be playing live again after the long break?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it was almost as if during the whole pandemic, you were thinking, is it ever going to happen again?
Yeah.
At certain points, it was. So getting back out and actually, our first experience of back playing was doing Cruise to the Edge.
Oh, nice.
Which is like complete luxury, right? Like on a cruise ship, all the food you can imagine, beautiful scenery and everything like that. And it was like, wow, this is a real treat to be back playing again. And we did that and straight onto the Symphony X tour, and every day was like a blessing. It was just like so happy to be out and doing it. Yeah.
Did you notice the crowds being extra like energetic or enthused?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was the same feeling all round. Everyone's in the room for the same reason, right? They just like love live music, whether you're playing it or watching it. It's you just get that feeling,
Yeah, I kind of felt that too, even in the audience for that show. I was like, wow, there's just a lot of energy there.
Yeah, I mean that was a great crowd. The Seattle crowd was awesome, and it was we actually met in person.
Yeah.
On that day, it's great to I've watched your YouTube channel and here and there, and
faces.
It's like, wow, you're the guy from YouTube. Yeah.
I'm the guy who does nerdy analysis.
You're the guy that knows more about the song than we do. Yeah.
I wonder. I'm assuming you watched my video on the song on Carousel.
Yeah, man, I learned a lot. Thank you.
I always wonder, because I never really get to talk to the actual artist, at least not very often. Like, were you watching, being like, "Oh, this sounds right," or was there stuff where you're like, "Oh, that seems a little weird"?
No, it was kind of it's just always great, right, to hear, like we kind of write this stuff in our own little bubble.
Yeah.
And you kind of put it out there, and it's like the fun is seeing what reaction it gets, right? Good or bad. It's like, I don't care. It's just getting a reaction of any kind is gratifying. And when someone like yourself going, the extra mile and actually understanding the inner workings of the song, it's just like, it's really cool to see.
Yeah, because I often wonder, I know, at least for myself, when I'm writing music, the process of creating something and the way that I would think about something I write is probably different than someone who's like coming along after the fact and like reverse engineering it,
Yeah.
So along those lines, like with a song like Carousel or anything with weird rhythms, when you're doing it live, do you have like a very specific, I'm assuming you guys are on a click.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have like a very specific click that you've made for the song?
Yeah. It's like, because like a lot of the time you can't just have a constant quarter.
Well, yeah.
Through. So like, every song is has a
bunch of weird rhythms.
as a unique click track.
Yeah. So if it's an odd time signature, does the click do like the sort of groupings that you guys are feeling, or is it doing more of like a fast, steady pulse to go with it?
Usually it's like a kind of, if it's in 7, it'll be like 1 go.
Yeah. If that's the grouping of it,
but it wouldn't be like.
You're not doing the full like.
Yeah. Which I know some bands do that. They have this kind of constant 16th.
It feels like that would get kind of grating on your ears.
Yeah, and I don't know, just like, I think just the way I usually feel stuff is in a kind of halftime pulse anyway. It's like that's just the way I kind of settle into grooves usually.
Like the Meshuggah kind of thing, like feel the steady pulse and then just feel the kind of rhythms against it.
Exactly, yeah. And sometimes we'll, we just have like one click track running.
Yeah.
So sometimes like people will disagree about where the pulse should be.
Yep.
That's quite fun sometimes. Where it's like you just have to go with the consensus, and then just learn to live with it or just ignore it.
I've come across that too in bands.
I did hear that like Meshuggah have like multiple clicks running.
Really? For different people?
Yeah.
I suppose you could do that. Seems like extra work, but
yeah.
It's just in that case, it's up for the person who's not in the majority to figure out how to just hear it based off.
Exactly. Yeah, and it gets to the point where you can just it's just there as a kind of safety net almost.
Yeah, exactly. And I would imagine on guitar anyway is like, unless it's places where you're playing by yourself, I mean, the drums are probably what you're listening to more anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just kind of cool for things like cues and now do you have
do you get audio cues? Like, do you have your click say like chorus? Like have vote like.
No, we don't have any. We're not really within the song, but at the start of the song, we have
someone counted off.
It's this Ray shouting.
Okay.
To count in various comical ways, just to kind of keep us entertained. Yeah, it's funny.
It's nice because then you don't get the audible like click stick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's cool. I always enjoyed like seeing bands where it's like you have that kind of silence. And
then they just hit into it.
Yeah, I think it's great, and of course with like programmed light shows and stuff like that, it's part and parcel of playing with a click. It's
yeah. It's interesting because like different kind of music. If you go watch Guthrie Govan play or something, which I've seen him a couple of times, it's like, of course they're all just like there's no click and everyone's just kind of playing. But I think for the kind of music you guys are doing, it's like pretty necessary for it to be all graded out. And also I think like the reason we started doing it was like the things like festivals, where we had very little, very little or zero sound check, and it just became a like, well, I can't hear the drums. Yeah.
So if I've got a click, and my guitar, I can do the show. And it was just like one of these kind of throw and go situations where you just don't have a sound check, and you just have to play the show anyway, even though you can't hear anyone else.
Yeah. It's nice when you can get a good long sound check, but that's not always the case, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I would imagine on a tour like you did with Symphony X that you have plenty of time to set up and sound check and all that.
Yeah. Well, since then we just we have our own in-ear mix and everything going on, so it's pretty much every show is the same.
So you have your own in-ear rig then that you're running.
Yeah. I think what do we use? The Behringer X32.
That's pretty common, yeah.
Rack version.
Yep.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, as long as everything is patched correctly before the sound check, it's just the same every time. Except there was one show on the tour where it was like a great. We were just settling into the tour and did the sound check as usual and all that stuff. And you go away and have some dinner and stuff, and then we came back to play, and. Somewhere in the interim, somebody had accidentally unpatched like all our kind of the 30 XLRs that we rely on, right? And instead of telling somebody, "Oh, I made a mistake, I messed up, I unplugged shit," they instead of doing that, they kind of just plugged it all back in like randomly. So
oh no!
So we played the first hit, and it was like, oh my god, it's like, why is my guitar like really loud and only in my left ear? Like so that was like a rare moment where it was like something else intervened and messed it up. But
do you guys all have control over your mixes individually, or is that run from
so you can do it on your phone, right?
On your phone. That's how I've usually done it in the past too. That way you don't have to rely on like yelling to the It used to always be that you'd yell to the guy on the side of the stage. Like,
and it was just... we did our fair share of that, years of doing that. It's just like, in the end, you just think there's got to be a better way.
In general, I think, and this isn't just with playing live, like I've found that as much as I can control myself is better, because then, like, at least if there's something wrong, like I can blame myself. As opposed to being out of my hands for the most part,
Yeah, and also you want to be as as easy as possible for the venue and like the other bands on the bill, right? We just want to be able to set up, play, and then disappear.
That's the idea. It would be nice to just be able to. It's so hard with everything going on to sometimes just focus on performing. But if you can make the stuff around it, work well so that you can do that, that's kind of obviously the ultimate goal.
And we'd never really been a band that has like a huge crew either or anything like that. We always, we just turn up. We were using like AX8s for many years. We're using the Quad Cortex now, so it's always like been a very stripped down thing, just like a very simple plug it in.
You're not carrying half stacks around.
No, we've never done that. It's just
even back when you first started. You're still.
I think like the first couple of shows we played, I had like we were sort of doing amps and all, and then like I remember like the XFX Ultra. I got one of those, and then it was like, oh man, that was like.
I don't have to lug an amp around anymore.
And that was like the first time ever somebody after the show complimented me on my tone.
Oh, wow.
As well. So I thought, this is the way.
Easy.
This is the way to go. Yeah.
So on the albums, your album too, what are you using for guitar tones for the most part? Are you using live amps or does it all?
Well, on my album, it's kind of easier to explain, I suppose, because I did most of it myself.
Okay.
Which was obviously everything is recorded. I used like the neural plugins.
Okay.
Like the Gojira plugin was I found that really kind of like inspiring to use. I think like a lot of riffs just came out just because of that plugin, right? It's just enjoyable tones.
So that was your main rhythm tone, was the Gojira?
Yeah, and what else was I using? Like the Pliny one for the clean tones and stuff like that. Just for kind of demoing and recording.
Yeah.
I just do it very basic like that, just straight into the interface and.
Yeah. And then did you, when you sent that out to get mixed? I'm assuming you didn't mix it, probably.
No, I did it. I did it with Nolly.
Oh, he did Nolly. Okay.
So like he lives like a couple of hours away from me, so I was able to go to his place.
Oh, nice.
And we sat together and drank coffee mostly, and did some mixing on the in between drinking coffee.
I was actually going to ask you who mixed and mastered it, because I was like, this sounds super good.
Yeah, it's Nolly mixed
Nolly,
it,
so
and it was Ermin Hamidovic.
Okay,
did the mastering.
Yeah, that's the crew there.
Yeah. The duo, the dynamic
last couple
duo.
of HAKEN albums were done by them as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was the same kind of process, really. It was just myself and Rich just, getting just recording guitar DIs for everything.
Yep.
And then we would go to Nolly's and basically, the way we did it for the last couple of HAKEN albums was he's got like 50 amps in his house. So like he picked 10 that he thought might be suitable, and we reamped like a couple of sections with these 10 different amps, and then we kind of did a blind test where we just like listened back. Think at the beginning, I think like I had my heart set on using the 5150, his original block letter one. I was like, oh man, we gotta have that. And he was like, oh man, everyone uses that. like every mix he'd done leading up to that was that amp, and I think he wanted to use something different. So we did this blind test thing. Ended up picking that amp.
Okay, well there you go. There's a reason why.
Yeah.
I feel like I always go for whatever it is. I go for some version of a 5150 with rhythm tones myself. So
it's
hard to beat for the heavy stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. At that point I didn't have one, but I kind of got one in since then, and on Tiktaalika.
Nice.
I did the reamping myself with the 5150, and just like that. And all the cabs are from the Cali
pack.
The Get Good Drums.
Yeah, actually,
Cali
I've been using that myself recently. That's a good one.
Yeah. So it's Nolly's done all the work, so we don't have to.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I think especially for like the heavier stuff, like Nolly's mixes they sound so good. Like they slam really hard. Makes all the riffs sound massive. So you pronounced the name of your album for me, which is perfect because I wasn't sure how to I was like,
I'm used to it.
Tiktaalika. So I was actually wondering what was the inspiration behind this whole theme of your album?
Well, it's the inspiration is a fossil called a Tiktaalika, which was discovered in like the mid 2000s up in Arctic Canada, and I just remember like reading this about this in a magazine. Like I used to get this. It was like Earth magazine or something like that in the 2000s, like a geology magazine, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't get more nerdy.
Well, I mean, we're doing prog, so that's what
exactly. Yeah.
Lead into it.
Yeah. I just had this. It was just about this kind of transitional fossil between fish and quadrupeds, and it was this guy from the University of Chicago who just kind of he figured out the age of the rocks that such a thing should exist theoretically. And went to various places on the planet where this age of rock, like 375 million year old rock, is at the surface, and there's only a few places where that happens.
Yeah,
and they found this area in Arctic Canada where I think after a couple of years they found it. So that just always inspired me. That kind of idea of he knew it was there, and he just didn't give up. right? And then eventually they found it. And so it's like that, like the human story behind it, and also the kind of, the sort of metaphorical spirit of this creature, leaving the water to step onto the land, and then life flourished from there and so forth. And it was just that whole thing. I thought was a great theme to write songs about.
It's a very unique and original kind of theme for this type of album too.
Yeah, and it's like something I don't see a lot and enough of, right? It's like that kind of thing. It's like
you always get like especially in like the power metal sort of realm, you get like big fantasy, like fantastical things and big long stories and all that.
Yeah.
And you got, and HAKEN's done that kind of stuff too in the past with like Aquarius, but it's an interesting and unique sort of concept. Now, did you have the concept, was that first, or did you come up with that as you were doing the music?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I guess it's kind of always been in the back of my mind that's something I'm interested in and would want to make into something one day. But when I started writing the music, I wasn't necessarily thinking that's what it was going to be. I was just kind of playing around in Logic, right? Just whiling away the evenings and coming up with riffs just for fun.
Yeah.
And then it just grew and grew. I started off just thinking, I'll make a 20-minute piece of music and put it on Bandcamp or something, just self-release thing. And then that 20 minutes, I was like, okay, that's cool. But then I started like working and expanding on certain sections of that 20-minute piece, and then each section grew into its own song. And then eventually I had like this album. Yeah,
I know how it is. Things I end up being the same way. It's like I always tell myself I'm gonna write like a short song that ends up being like 10 minutes long, because I don't know, I feel like if you come up with ideas, like you kind of want to fully develop them as much as you can,
yeah. And I don't think I could do that, right? I don't think I couldn't sit down and just envisage this whole thing in one go, right? It's got to be a gradual exploration. And
you have to kind of like, once you get into it, you can see where things might expand, more.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting because I have quite a few friends who are like more classical composers, or video game, that kind of stuff. And like I've talked with them about like, how do you write a big long piece, and some people will tell me that they could actually like envision the entire thing ahead of time, all the twists and turns, and like I just never have been able to do that. It's like I have to come up with something first before I can see like where it's gonna go.
I have to. I'm the same. I have to kind of come up with some stuff, and then I usually like listen to it back, go like make a bounce, and then put it on my phone and go for a walk and just kind of listen to it, and that's when like more ideas will come. Like I kind of think I heard a melody there or something, and then you get back home and try and make a record of those ideas. And
so when you're writing, are you usually writing into Logic or into a DAW?
Yeah, into Logic. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're actually like writing and recording riffs right off the bat?
Yeah. I'll do things like just set up just a hi-hat, quarter note hi-hat, and just like let it run and record like 10 minutes of just riffing around on the guitar with to see what happens.
See what you like.
So, and then you can go in and, I do a lot of like editing that as well. So like, you can be creative with the WAV.
So you'll take bits from one part and put it somewhere else.
So you think, oh, that's a cool little bit. I'll repeat that there. And what happens if I take that whole thing and displace it by a 16th note? Or something like that. It's just things like that where you can play around with the WAV and then sort of create ideas that way, like chopping it up and whatnot. And then it just all kind of flourishes from there, really.
So Are you typically writing from a riff first perspective?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you got to have.
I mean, I just metal. You got to have riffs.
I just love riffs. I think that's like it's kind of like they're like a kind of mystical thing, where it's like I don't know if you can really like explain what a riff is.
Yeah, I know. People do ask me, be like, well, I guess it's like a short phrase of notes, but I mean,
yeah, it's more than that.
It's more. It could be.
It's got palm mutes.
It's got palm mutes. It's got to have chugs and palm mutes.
Yeah. So there's like a mysticism around riffs that I enjoy. You know, like listening back to I don't know, like Peace Sells or something like that.
Yeah.
He's like, man, so much cool stuff on this. Like where did that come from? You know, it's like, and there seems to be there's no rules to it. You can go anywhere. You can start from any note and go to any note.
Yeah.
And you know, that's the beauty of metal. It can go in any direction.
And I think that's, for me anyway, that's the beauty of prog metal, even to a greater extent, because you can go anywhere, like stylistically too. You know, that's how you do,
yeah.
You know?
And then, so I'm really I very rarely think of anything like theoretically.
Okay.
When I'm writing, I'm just thinking, okay, what's it going to sound like if I go to this note?
Yeah. Now, after the fact of doing that, do you know like what's happening theoretically?
Yeah, I can go back and then, you know, I'm just in the process of like transcribing the whole thing for a tab book.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of
figure it out.
Know what key you're in, what scale you're using. You know.
Yeah.
It's nothing's really that outlandish anyway. No. It's just kind of like it's
it's interesting to talk to different, you know, very different musicians who are all very skilled and see like what their kind of process is when it comes to theory, because like there's some people who are crazy good but don't know anything, you know, like they couldn't tell you like what a chord is or whatever. But then there's some people who could like analyze it all right off the bat, or even write with theory in mind, and it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, you know. But
that's why I can do it like the, you know, like transcribing stuff. You know, I do a lot of work for the guitar magazines.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I have done for like 20 years or something. It's like transcribing tracks or putting lessons together and this and that. So I'm pretty good at like theory stuff, but it's just something I've never been able to use it as a composer, you know, like a proper composer, like that's like a complete blind spot for me. I don't know how they're doing that.
It's a whole different world. Yeah, a good friend of mine is like a really high up video game composer, and like I've hung out with a bunch of like video game composers at dinner or whatever, and like it's just a whole different world. It's so alien to me. Like I really enjoy it, and I wish I could do it better, but it's like a whole nother thing. I found for myself, like my ear was never that great, at least to begin with. It's gotten better, but I often use theory as a crutch, you know, because I was very comfortable with it. So I find I do like write from a theory perspective sometimes, you know, if I just to like get myself out of a bind if I'm like trying to figure out what to do next. But there's no right or wrong way to write music. It's just whatever works for you.
Yeah, man. Sometimes I'm sitting there, like there was like one, I remember in the song In Alluvium, there was like one transition that just I couldn't get for ages and ages and ages, and I just sat and really just played. It was just like one chord I needed to unlock this transition, and rather than thinking, oh, I could figure, you know, I had no idea how to figure it out, so I just through a process of elimination, I just played every chord I could think of in that little gap until I found the one that worked, and it was like, I guess that's what composers are good at. They can just think and pull that chord in. You know?
I think it's a struggle for anybody. You know, it's like people aren't writing symphonies in one day. I mean, it's like it takes months to like figure things out. But that can be really frustrating because, like, if you have two pieces if you've two things that you really like, but you're trying to connect them together.
Yeah.
It's like, that can be so frustrating because you're like, you don't want it to be a really awkward transition. And,
exactly. Yeah. That can be that take the longest time out of the whole thing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Especially with prog, I found that like transitions are some of the trickiest things to handle, you know?
Yeah.
If you're trying to like cram all this different stuff together.
Yeah.
So when it comes to riffing, which I have to say, the riffs on your album are awesome, by the way. I need to sit down and learn a few because there's some banging riffs in there. What are your main riffing influences?
I suppose riffing
I'm sure that's a big question.
Yeah. I guess like things like a lot of kind of King Crimson is in there, I suppose. Okay. In terms of like the rhythmic aspect of things. You know, so you can like take an idea and then rather than repeat the same thing, you chop a note off of it and then repeat that. Like King Crimson do, right? And I guess, you know, Dimebag, of course.
Okay.
That whole kind of grooviness.
Groovy metal, yeah.
And sort of Matthias Eklund.
Yeah.
He's a name that doesn't get mentioned enough.
No.
He's like brilliant, right? As a, you know, he's just such an inspiring person, and his whole approach to music is that kind of, he's got this kind of endless fountain of creativity, and he's very kind of aware of what he's doing rhythmically and scale wise, and like using these kind of Indian phrasings and
the conical and all that.
Yeah, he's like a master. Well, you know, he wouldn't call himself that, but he's really good at it. So like, I think it was like probably like 12 years ago, a buddy and me went to Sweden to do his freak guitar camp.
Oh, nice.
And it was, I guess it was like 5 days of just like intense trying to keep up with Matthias.
Yeah.
You know, he's like at the front, and you're just in a kind of class of people, and you've got your tab of what the whole tab of each lesson for the whole week, and you just kind of work through it, and it was like lots of like cool rhythmic things and just approaches to how you can take an idea and expand upon it.
Yeah.
And it was just that one experience I feel has been like a massive inspiration, like being creative since then. Like it really unlocked a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's like one experience I can point to and say, that a lot of what I do today when I'm coming up with stuff, I kind of go back to sitting in that room and like listening to Matthias explain stuff. And
he has such a
really
interesting way of playing and writing. It's very unique.
Yeah. And I love that he can. I love Freak Kitchen too. Yeah. It's great.
I like it when a musician has like very much has their own side of identity, you know, has figured out.
Yeah.
It's like you can hear the influences, but it's still, you know, but they're doing it in a way that's their own sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, he should be mentioned all the time.
It's hard though.
Talk about
like, I think his music is, you know, it's pretty unique and different, so it's like maybe not as accessible for a lot of people.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like listening to Freak Kitchen, it's like pop songs. With you know, cool riffs and like really unique solos with harmonics that only he can retrieve from the fretboard somehow. Let's do that.
So going back to your album, was the plan for there always to be vocals, or did you have a thought in your mind that it might be instrumental at some point?
I think pretty soon after like writing Yeah, I think from near the beginning, I thought there would be vocals. Yeah, because I wanted to be about something.
Yeah.
And I enjoy writing lyrics. It kind of goes hand in hand with writing the music. I'll kind of often come up with like a phrase that will unlock something musically. Like the first, I remember like Arctic Cemetery. I just thought that was a cool sounding phrase in and of itself that kind of put me in a certain frame of mind. And it just kind of like inspired some style of riff that came out, and then wrote some words that fit rhythmically, and just kept working on the melodies. And and all the vocals I kind of demoed out like a line at a time, like singing badly. And just and using what do they call the tuning thing in Logic, like
Melodyne?
Flex pitch, I think they call it. Flex pitch.
I'm not sure what it is in Logic, but yeah.
Auto
tune.
Yeah, just sort of using that as well as a creative tool where I would kind of like record like vaguely the melody I was thinking of, and I would use that to kind of get more accuracy and try experimenting with notes. So what if that note was a tone higher? This and that, And
with the harsh vocals, how did you demo that?
Just just going.
Okay. Or like fake. I've done it in the past where you like do like a half scream with like speaking,
Yeah, but really just like that, just really, just badly, but enough just to show the singer, So I didn't want to just go to like people like Tommy Rogers sang on that song.
Yeah,
I didn't want to just go to him and say, "Here's the lyrics." Like,
figure it out.
You make a melody, that's because that's not writing the song. That's
no. I think it's sometimes with metal, it can feel like the vocals are tacked on. At the end, be like, here's the music and all the riffs, and it's like, we got to put some vocals on the top of it.
Yeah. Which I can always see when that's happened, and it just makes for an unmemorable song for me. So I want it to be. The vocal is the hook, right? You need the chorus, and I'm kind of not satisfied until it's something that I want to sing along to myself.
Did you have specific vocalists in mind when you were doing these songs?
I kind of thought Tommy would be perfect for that one, and it's just the thing. Like, I sort of like, I hope he says yes, because otherwise I might have to rethink it, right? So I thought he'd be perfect for that song, and Daniel de Jong. I've always loved his voice. Like, he's known for being in Textures, but he was in a band before that called Silas.
Okay.
And he had this kind of. I just remember finding him on YouTube once, or maybe MySpace, something like that. And his voice was just really aggressive, but had that kind of soulfulness to it. Whereas like he could do like this really aggressive screams, but he had this kind of, he could sing like a blues scale really well as well, right? So, and I've just always kind of thought about using, like, writing something for his voice would be pretty cool. But he was on Crawl, Walk, Run.
Yep.
Which has that kind of, exactly that, like, brutal screaming.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite ones.
In the verses, and then the chorus is this kind of blues scale, kind of soulful kind of sounding thing.
Yeah.
Which all the guys just blew me away, with far exceeded my expectations of how the songs were going to sound.
It's always fun to send your music off, it's like your demoed like vocals, and then get it back with like someone who's actually good. Oh man, that moment is like opening a Christmas present, right? It's just and it was so easy working with those guys. Like those
two guys, and Vladimir Lalish. He's this just like a friend we've met on tour, and he plays with David Maxim.
Okay.
He sings with him, I should say. So we've kind of crossed paths here and there, and he's got this kind of really cool kind of operatic, almost like he can do like the operatic stuff, and then he's got this kind of Mike Patton-y insanity that he can do as well. So he's on a couple of tracks, and they did a great job of recording themselves in their home studios, and they sent me all the tracks, and it was just really simply dropping them in my project, and everything lined up and sounded perfect. It was like great. I don't have to do anything.
They did the editing themselves.
Yeah. Nice. It was all clean, and I didn't have to touch anything. It was the best.
Yeah. It's nice these days. Everyone's got, it seems like anyone who knows what they're doing has a decent home studio, and like, it's like you get professional sounding stuff like right off the bat. You don't have to edit it, and it's like
it's wonderful.
So who did bass and drums for?
So I played bass.
You play bass, okay?
On it. It was just like and drums is this guy Darby Todd. Okay. He's just like he's a pretty well-known UK session drummer.
Oh, okay.
He's done like more recently. He's been playing with Devin on.
Oh, okay.
On tour, and he played on Devin's latest album. So he's getting the recognition that he deserves, because he's awesome.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Yeah, so it's the same thing. I sent him tracks and some like my demoed drums included, and he, I told him you can either do what I programmed, or you can just do whatever you want. And, so he did a bit of both. Nice. It was great, because I wanted that kind of the sort of sound I had in my head was Sean Reinert playing like on the like Cynic and Death album, Human. That kind of, it's metal, but it's got that kind of finesse, it's got that kind of, it's like a fusion player,
the fusion vibe to it,
like improvising through a death metal song kind of thing, right? And it was so I wanted that, and he was Darby's the man for that, and and a lot of the times he would like improvise. I think really like the turnaround was like super quick, so I'd sent him one song at a time, and he would have it back to me. Like complete edited drum tracks like within 24 hours.
Wow.
Okay. And he's super quick, and just like that was, I think you can hear that on the record. It's kind of a lot of it's off the cuff.
Yeah.
Kind of drumming. So then I wanted to preserve that. So if there was ever a case of like he kind of hit that a 16th note after the riff that I wrote, whatever, I would just change the riff.
Okay.
To fit the drums, because I wanted to preserve his kind of that kind of off the cuff style.
So he did the editing for you too.
Yeah, man.
Jimmy.
Yeah. I guess as far as he plays pretty much tight anyway. So there's only a few places where I think he moved things some kick drums here and there, but as far as like editing, like Nolly did a lot of the kind of like cleaning up the tom tracks and all that stuff.
Yeah. I just meant like the performance part of it, because like editing drums is such a pain. If you have to go through like from scratch and like get all the takes and quantize everything. But
it was just really like Darby just kind of I think he probably did something like 3 or 4 takes per song.
Yeah.
And then he just picked his favorite sections. And so what I was presented with like a finished performance, on each track.
So when you sent it out for drums, did you just do like demo guitars, or did you actually record like more guitars first?
I think probably a mixture. Yeah, I think it was. I think at that point I'd probably finished all the sort of like the rhythm guitar tracks. So they kind of didn't have to move, or anything. So
because it seems like back in the day you'd always be like, well, you got to do the drums first, and then you got to do the bass, then you got to do guitars. But
I learned with like HAKEN, like the last couple of albums we did it drums last.
No, interesting.
It just not for any reason other than how
it just worked.
The scheduling worked out, right? Yeah. It's just like, we couldn't book the drum studio until a certain time, and but there's no point waiting for that when you can just get all the guitars done, right?
Yeah.
And then
it's like everything's on a grid, and you know what it's going to sound like in the end. So there's no reason you can't record out of order.
Yeah, and the good thing with Ray as well, he will kind of prepare everything he's going to record. He'll program it.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
First, so like we know exactly what he's going to play.
Nice. Like does he program out like fills and stuff?
Yeah, I think on the whole, yeah. And then he'll practice that. And,
yeah, that's funny because I've been doing a similar thing recently with I have some songs I'm working on now, but lately I've been doing these fully virtual mock-ups, including guitar, like just so I don't have to learn the stuff right away, just so I can hear what it sounds like. So I'll be like, I'll program the guitars and bass and all the synths.
Oh yeah,
yeah, it's interesting.
So,
it's been kind of fun because
how are you doing guitar programming?
I have a VST called Shreddage 2.
Oh yeah,
it's by Impact Soundworks, and like you can do palm mutes. Like it does take a little bit extra work, you can do it's got palm mutes, and like some of the inflections like slides and stuff don't come through, and the lead guitars are like whatever. But like at least for myself, I can hear it performed perfectly, before.
Yeah, that's
have
cool.
To like sit down and like
Yeah, that's one I've heard of, Shreddage. Yeah, that's I feel like there should be more guitar,
that's
virtual
the best
guitar
one I've come
plugins.
across for like heavy stuff. But
because I guess like bass is like relatively easy to recreate because there's a bunch of virtual bass plugins nowadays, right?
Yeah, I've been using Umansky bass by the Erman's company, Submission Audio.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, that's kind of my go-to.
Sounds so good. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It almost makes me like not want to because I have a bass and I play bass on my songs, but I'm like sometimes I'm like well, maybe I just won't play bass because it's too much work to have to sit down and play bass.
Yeah, that one just really just sounds good in the mix.
Yeah, especially for like the heavy stuff. Just
off the bat. Lately I've just been enjoying. Have you seen like the Jens Bogren one knob?
Oh yeah,
amps.
Yeah, I haven't tried those out yet,
but yeah, man, you should. The guitar one, it's like I guess a dual rectifier.
Okay.
Man, it's I think it's probably the most satisfying guitar plugin I've tried so far.
Really?
So,
I'll have to check it out. Because I don't really like flipping knobs too much, so that sounds right up my alley.
Perfect. And it's just got one knob, which is gain, and he's got like a little kind of scratch on it on the like this is the sweet spot. So of course you just leave it there anyway. Like, you could just have no knob, and it would it would be just as good. Yeah. Which. So that kind of brings us up to date, really. With like,
there you go. Are you using the same like guitar tunings that you guys use in HAKEN too for your solo stuff?
No, well, HAKEN is all 8-string.
Okay.
Kind of stuff. So we kind of like everything is kind of written with that in mind, I guess. But for the Tiktaalika stuff, it's all 6-string.
Oh, really? All 6-string.
6-string and drop D. Is the whole thing.
Okay.
I guess I wanted to just do something different.
Yeah. Don't have like the super low tune stuff.
Yeah, and just have I guess I was going for a more sort of classic metal sound.
Well, there's a lot more kind of like faster thrashy riffs on your album, so those don't always work as well if you're super low tuned anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm always sort of blown away with, E standard albums, right? Like the classic thrash era.
Yeah. That stuff can still sound super heavy. Like,
exactly.
It doesn't have to be low to be heavy.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to try and tap into, that kind of, to like come up with heavy stuff that isn't just heavy because it's low. It's actually got some substance to it. That's more of that ilk.
Well, I don't feel like in HAKEN that you guys use the low 8 string, like abuse the low 8 string that much.
No, we just kind of use it as like an, the real reason I started using 8 string on everything with HAKEN was just because it kind of meant you didn't have to bring different guitars.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
If like you don't have to have 3 different guitars for 3 different tunings.
Yeah.
And also I couldn't afford to have 3 guitars. If I could only have one decent guitar, right?
Yeah.
So it was might as well have one that's got all the notes on it and use that.
What's your 8 string tuning for?
I think lately I've just sort of settled on just like standard tuning, but with a drop E on the thickest string.
Yeah, so you get like an octave lower than.
Yeah, I think I've kind of settled on that. I was kind of flipping between F sharp and E for a little while, but I just got bored of retuning that string all the time. I'm just going to learn it in E, and then
I've got
done.
My 2 low strings are E and A on the 8 string, so it's basically like the low 2 strings of a 6 string guitar an octave down.
Oh yeah, cool.
So you can play Metallica riffs an octave lower.
And that's kind of cool to visualize as well, right?
Yeah.
So
it makes it hard to do like lead stuff, but I never do lead stuff on the low strings on an A string anyway. So
nah, me either.
I'm not doing like A string sweeps or anything. About that. Along with the A string, it feels like HAKEN, at least especially with the last couple albums, has morphed into being heavier over time. Was that something that you guys did intentionally, or did it just kind of happen naturally?
I think it was kind of partly intentional in that we were those 2 albums, the Vector virus thing, which was a concept we came up with like way before anyone thought a pandemic could be a reality.
Yeah, it's a fitting name for the year you released it,
though. So we just had this kind of idea of doing a double album, but or 2 albums, which kind of works a double album, but just recorded in different years. So it was just that, like the Vector one was just like a heavier stuff.
Yeah,
and I guess we just felt that we wanted to continue the same vibe and the same sound, so you could listen to the 2 pieces as one complete, like big concept album. So it was just kind of part and parcel of it being like a 2-part thing. It's like we just wanted to be consistent with the sound and that kind of heaviness. But now we've just finished the next HAKEN album.
Next one, yeah.
Which I don't know. It's probably not as heavy.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I like that there's the heaviness element to it. Like I think it's an extra, level of intensity. But it still sounds like you guys, even if it's heavier. You have a distinctive sound to your style. Have you noticed people, like some people being like, I really like the older stuff versus like the newer stuff?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. People don't hesitate in telling you that either.
So they tell you that in person. That's the real.
Oh yeah. They'll tell you
Okay.
what their favorite one is and which one I hate. which I know. It's all good, man.
I know.
It doesn't bother me.
You have to kind of get used to that because it's like, you put so much of your energy into music, and then it's like, obviously, some people are just gonna be like, "Well, that sucks." And you're like,
"Yeah, I guess,
it is what it is."
It's fine. It's fine.
Well, I'm going to tell you which ones I hate. I'm just
Yeah.
I love all your albums. The Mountain was the first one I listened to, so I think that's probably still my favorite, just maybe for like nostalgia reasons. But
yeah.
I actually think Virus is probably my second favorite, second or third. So
okay, yeah.
It doesn't really matter to me, the heaviness part of it. It's just like, is it good? I actually do remember. Well, I mean, Virus came out in 2020, so it was like when it came out that summer, you know, I was still locked in whatever. I couldn't go do a lot of stuff. So I just remember taking walks through the park around my house and blasting that. So there's some good memories involved with that. Not with being 2020, but having music like help me through the pandemic. Sort of.
Exactly. Yeah. It's cool, man. You know, every album's like a moment in time, right? And it's just like, that's what you're into writing at that point, right? So it's like
you got to do what you want to do at the time. You know, if you're trying to write because you think that's what people are going to enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're doing that and then someone says they hate it, then you'd be upset.
Yeah,
right. Like,
exactly. Because then you're trying.
Like,
to
oh no,
them.
I failed then, right? But if you're just writing, you know, you're just sort of making a piece of art and putting it out there.
Yeah. If
someone doesn't like it, it's like, fine, I like it.
If you have hardcore fans, it's like they'll, you know, that sometimes can be the worst thing because they expect something from you. You know, it's like, well, that one doesn't sound like the last one that I really liked. So,
yeah, I get the impression like they're almost trying to, you know, steer you as well.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you telling me this? Like, so like the next time I write music, it will be something else.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
Well, I enjoy that all of Haken's albums are a little bit different because then I don't know exactly what I'm going to get. Like, I know it's going to sound, there's be like a core sound, but it's nice to go into it and be like, oh, hey, I'll be a little surprised, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I always think of it like watching a Steven Spielberg movie, right? It's like, you know, it's like Jaws is nothing like Indiana Jones. Right?
Yeah. You know, it'll be good, but it'll be different.
Yeah. And it's got his style, you know. It's like, you're always going to enjoy a Spielberg movie, but it'd be weird if he just every movie was a shark movie. Right?
We don't need any more shark movies. Jaws is good enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he's like, like, and the artist himself, you know, it's like, you know, like, and it's like what came before will kind of affect where you're going to go in the future as well. So it's. You know, after doing a couple of heavy albums, or heavier kind of stuff for us.
Yeah.
You know, the next thing we do is not going to be like that. It's going to, we're like, we're bored with that now. Let's try.
Yeah. So what's, as a final thing here, I guess, what's on the horizon for you in the future here, like the near future, anyway?
Well, I mean. Right now, we're just kind of finishing off. Like Jens Bogren is just finishing off the mix and mastering.
So you're that far along already, okay?
Of that album, the latest one. So I think we're just sort of we'll be gearing up the kind of promo for that.
Okay.
And we're just kind of working out what the release schedule is going to be.
Yeah.
With the label, you know, they kind of dictate when it's going to come out and.
I'm assuming sometime next year, probably.
Yeah. It's like, you know, like the thing. It used to be like a sort of 3-month lead time. You'd have to kind of deliver.
Yeah.
Now that's turned into 6 months because of you know, that's you know, purely for a practical reason. Like that's when they have to make the vinyl order.
Yeah,
you know, and
you probably have to shoot videos and all that kind of stuff.
But everything seems to be like around the vinyl production. You know, they've got to put in now, for having them ready for 6 months' time, right? Kind of thing. So it's kind of that is dictating everything. So it'll be kind of around that.
Cool. And you guys are headed out on tour in the spring, right? With
BT Bam and ourselves.
Nice. That's a good
in Europe, around Europe, which we haven't done, since before the dark times.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a trip, like it's going to be great.
Has HAKEN toured with BT Bam?
Yeah, we did like years, like a long time ago, like 2014 or something like that. We
that's just did a bill that's a top tier bill there.
Yeah, I mean,
you
that's
got to bring it over here.
Oh yeah, I'd love to.
You guys just aim here. You can wait a minute. That's fine.
It's just like if we could, we probably would. But it's just like it's just so rare for these two bands schedules to be able to line up.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of put on the table for this HAKEN BT Bam tour, and it's like, yeah, we grabbed it. It's like, yeah, man,
nice.
They're awesome people, right? They're just so much, it's just chilled guys, and a great band, man.
Yeah,
incredible band.
Another one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah. Well, I mean, their last few albums I've loved as well. Just from they just they're kind of annoyingly creative, and
it's always so different and unique in their stuff too.
Yeah. And I always love like the concepts that that they come up with, and the lyrics is always really cool. Just as songs, it just all works. Love it.
Yeah, well, the next time you're back in the Seattle area, we'll make sure to get together.
Yeah, I think it's like we're kind of planning on coming back around the same time of year as we did this year.
Nice.
That's in the works. These things, man. Like it's like you don't know. You get shown a bunch of dates like 8 months in advance, and you're like, yeah, I'm available, and then the agents and whoever make it happen, right? So
yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today. It's been a pleasure.
I could go on forever.
Yeah, I know. Talk about music forever, but I'm sure you've got things you got to do, eat dinner or whatever.
Yeah,
I've got to go take care of my children at some point here. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Lucky them. Lucky them.
Well, sometimes maybe. They get to have a musician as a dad. Anyway. So, I guess if for anyone out there, if you haven't checked out HAKEN or Charlie's solo album, go do that right away. It's
Tiktaalika.
Yeah, sorry.
I'll say it
I wasn't
for
even going to try to
to
say it because I couldn't remember it. Tiktaalika. Yeah. It's really good. I've been really enjoying it. So if you're a fan of Charlie's work in HAKEN, I think you'd really enjoy it. So go check it out. Thanks.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for your time, man.